The paranormal, UFOs, monsters, mysteries. You're listening to Talking Weird. And now, from a cabin deep in the Northwoods, your hosts, Dr. Dean Bertram and Jen Durrell.
Well, hey there, baby.
Hey, baby.
How's your day going today? Maybe you want to tell people a little bit about the tour job you have now. And it's like it's a haunted location as well, right?
Well, not necessarily, since it's owned by the state.
Oh, so you can't say. Okay.
I don't know if they'd really want me to or not.
Okay.
But
Don't
yeah,
say anything
I'm
then. I threw you in
yeah,
the deep end.
it's a location that I used to work at back in the 90s. So I'm pretty happy that I'm back there. So there's even new information that's come out. So it's fun researching it.
Huh. Don't say the
Yeah.
name of the place, but you were saying there's like a high quartz deposit there in the ground or something. So
Yes, it's all built on limestone quartz. Yes. And on top of a trading post for the Missouri Indians. I think they said it was the Woodlands Nation, which
Okay.
seems to be a wide variety of different nations in Missouri, I guess.
Maybe we can talk a little bit with our guest tonight about quartz deposits and the like, because it always fascinates
yeah.
me how that type of, I suppose, mineral deposit can really seem to encourage paranormal type experiences or maybe even facilitate them. I don't know. But anyway, our guest tonight, she's a well-known in the paranormal world as a fierce, compassionate researcher of the unexplained. She's an author, producer, director, and passionate pursuer of not only the evidence of spirit, but the story that the spirits are here to tell. In her book, I'd Rather Talk to Dead People, she shares her own story of seeking answers after her father passed away suddenly. This journey led her to create a show where others could receive the answers that they seek in spirit. Through 3 seasons of The Oddity Files, which is available on Amazon Prime, she's investigated some of the most notoriously haunted locations in the world and has gotten stories from the souls roaming these locations beyond the lore and the legends told on a daily basis. With her latest series, Paranormal Crossroad, this self-proclaimed Oprah of the Paranormal is on a mission to make the paranormal investigative process more personal. She's going to the homes and workplaces of those living with questions, grief, and despair, and helping them speak to the spirits who are there with them. So I'm delighted to welcome to the show Kitsie Duncan. Kitsie.
Hey.
That was the best intro ever. Can I get a copy of that?
You can just
You
go
made
and
me
take
sound
the
so
clip.
professional. Thank you.
Well, you are so professional. You've done 2 series now. You're in the process of still doing your new series, which is Paranormal Crossroad, which until I actually watched it, I thought was Paranormal X Road.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I watched some episodes, or I would have read it as Paranormal X Road when I did.
Yeah.
Well, it was really cool in the 90s to put an X in everything, and I'm just stuck there, apparently.
Remember, what was it? Degeneration X in the WWE wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
One of the, how there'd be these different clans fighting each other in wrestling. Degeneration X were one of those.
Yeah. Long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yes.
Happy times. But we started the show talking about, which we won't, apparently I can't name now, Jen just told me.
Well, I'm not sure. I didn't ask.
No, don't name it because I don't want to get you fired after you just started working.
I don't think I'll get fired.
Apparently the location is quite haunted, and one of the things that has going for it, or perhaps going against it, is that there's high levels of quartz or limestone deposits. Is that something you've ever come across in your many investigations, Kitsie?
I actually live in a town in Indiana that is built on limestone. So,
There you go.
yes, it's absolutely a thing. Bloomington, Indiana, go Hoosiers.
You know what? I've always been fascinated, as I was saying in the intro, that this somehow, I don't know what your take is. Do you think it creates paranormal type experiences, or it facilitates them more, or?
I'm a firm believer in the crystal life. I believe they have magical powers, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
And quartz is just loaded with energy. And anybody who's into the paranormal knows the ghosties need that energy to communicate with
Mm-hmm.
us. So I believe that has something to do with it.
Yeah, that's something I noticed you mentioned in a number of episodes of your show and in your book, that you sometimes carry a large battery bank or a large battery to give the spirits more energy to I guess use in their communications or to facilitate their communications.
Yeah, I do offer it up a lot because I had a tarot card reading once. I went to the ever famous Mr. Zach Baggins Haunted Museum, and I ponied up some pretty steep cash for a tarot card reading while I was there. And the lovely lady, who was dead on with everything, not gonna lie, told me, stop offering them your energy. When you walked in, you brought an army in this room with you. And
Wow.
that's when I started offering up the battery pack, because the odd box, which is my favorite way to communicate with spirits, it's a spirit box, or even the apps hooked up to it's like a guitar amp. So it's like a little speaker. It's got pedals on the side to add reverb and creepy sounds. And you need this ginormous battery pack to feed that baby. So, and we rarely ever go through like one little dot on it. So I'm always like, well, you take that energy. Since I'm not allowed to offer up my energy anymore, you can take the energy from our big old battery pack.
What's your favorite piece of equipment as an investigator? What are the things that really stand out for you?
It's the spirit box. It really is. I mean, and the apps, a few apps. Most of the apps, but the Portal Plus app has been fabulous for me. And it's pretty much the only way I personally, because I can't get an EVP to save my life, can have a real-time conversation with spirits. So, and I am an ADHD paranormal investigator. So the quicker things happen, the better. And this just works for me. And I've been so blessed that the spirits have wanted to tell me their stories.
Tell us a little bit about your personal technique in communicating with them, because I know you have a very compassionate and very human approach to talking to them that comes through in your show and in your book. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I walk into every location, whether it's now people's homes or, demon infested, allegedly Bobby Mackey's in Wilder, Kentucky. And I say out loud, I'm like, I am here out of love, light, peace, and positivity. And I'm only here to speak to spirits of the same MO. And I don't put up with crap from spirits. Can I cuss?
Yeah, you're fine.
If they get shitty with me, I put on my mommy voice, and I kid you not, they back off. I don't believe that there are demons in all these locations that people say there are. I believe that if there were demons roaming the earth, they'd be in places like, the White House. Who knows? Much more important places than a honky tonk in Wilder, Kentucky. So, but I do believe if you were an asshole in life, you're going to be an asshole in death. Sure. And I think 9 times out of 10, people are so afraid and so terrified in these locations that they automatically go to the D word, if you will.
Yeah.
It's a big,
they can't see it.
Yeah, a big point of contention between Jen and I, actually, is I often do tend to think of it as tricks to spirits or demons or something. And Jen, I think, has an approach which is probably a little closer to your take.
Yes.
Yeah, it's, you've got to deal with spirits like you would any human being. Yeah, and that's writing this book. I'd rather talk to dead people was my lesson in everything I had investigated for the last some odd years, and putting it all down onto paper. I realized that bringing compassion, empathy, and just common human decency into these locations are what has gotten me the evidence I've gotten to this day. I grew up terrified of ghosts. Poltergeist, The movie, the original, I haven't seen the second one. I won't.
Oh,
Scared me
There's
to
three.
death. Oh, well, yeah, they did a remake
No.
of the first
Yeah, I
one.
know.
I saw the original ones.
Yeah, the
But
original
it's
one's all that matters, though. Go ahead.
exactly. But it scarred me for a very long
Yeah,
time.
me too.
And I grew up in a haunted house, but mom,
Mhm.
thank God, she told me, "Oh, honey, you just have an overactive
Yeah.
imagination." Come to find out, my sister was going through some shit. Like last
Oh.
year, I found out, but she didn't tell mom, so she's been terrified of it her entire life.
Oh,
Anywho,
wow.
but yeah, I just it's how you treat them, and I just wish more people would treat them like they would treat somebody they see on the street, and not
Mhm.
like somebody they meet on social media.
That's very true.
There's a rather moving part in your book, I think. It's a place which is actually run as a haunted location in Utah, as well as actually being haunted. So it's like a Halloween kind of event place. And I
Yeah.
think there the spirits say something to you, or one of them says something like, "We're just people," or something
Yeah.
like that. Which
Mm.
It was Linda in the demon silo, the alleged demon silo. It that was the first place I had ever gone that, the big ones on the cable station said this place is infested with
Yeah.
demons. There were satanic rituals done, and I've got this theory. There's no demons. Love, light, peace, and I was a little scared though. Not
Yeah.
gonna lie.
Yeah.
I walked into this place and I'm like, we'll see. It was weird, but it was a huge metal silo. So just the ambiance inside of the sounds going around and around inside there. And it was right next to like a major highway too. So you walked in and you felt off. So I get why people think terrible things are going on there. And the spirits, literally, when I said, okay, let's have a conversation, the spirits on my spirit box said devil, demon, and I'm like, okay, guys, look. I know there's nothing bad here. I do consider myself an empath. I've been told I'm an empath. And there are places you walk in when you're like, oh, something's not right here. But I did not get that there. I chalked it up to the sound movement around in this silo. And I said, I don't want to hear it. I want to know who you really are. I want to know who your real story is. And then the lovely Linda came over, and she proceeded to tell me and my crew that they act like devils and demons to the investigators that come into these places because they think that's what they have to do. And in the end, she goes, and I tear up every time I talk about it, at least get goosebumps. She goes, we are just people. And I was like, and that's when everything changed. I'm like, I've been treating these spirits with compassion, but now it's my mission to get the rest of the world to do the same as well. And we're like, guys, you don't have to act like demons. You be who you want to be. With, talking to nobody pretty much is what it summed up to. Nobody that you could see. But it was actually a super moving moment for myself and my crew, and apparently for you too. So yay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also a good way for them to, get your energy so they can, communicate with you. So that would make sense why they would, go that way, try to scare you and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, you think about it, you go into anywhere and they've been doing things the same way forever. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So it's kind of sad. It was kind of like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So what actually got you into the paranormal? I know you mentioned that you had some experiences when you were younger. Do you want to share that?
Yeah. So I blocked all of it out when I was younger. I'm not gonna lie. I'll be perfectly because I was terrified. The house was haunted. My parents had bought it from people that were funeral directors before that. So
Oh,
Lord only knows
wow.
what they brought back to the house with them.
Yeah.
Nothing well, not to me. My sister, whole other story. But the story growing up was if something went missing in the house, the ghost took it. Just wait, it'll be back in a couple days. And it did. So But I didn't get into the paranormal until my dad passed. He was 52 years old, suddenly died of a massive heart attack watching Hoosier basketball. God love him. So he died happy. But I started to, well, first of all, there were no goodbyes. It was just, I could never get closure. And then we moved into this house where I'm at now, which I grew up in the northern part of the state, which is right outside of Chicago. And I moved down to south central Indiana. And I started feeling sometimes like somebody was watching me. And I literally was the child that took the chair dad died in, because that was my daddy. And I needed that. And it was sitting in my garage forever because my husband would never actually let me put it in the house. And I started thinking, I'm like, well, what if that's dad? What if that's grandpa, because we had a lot of deaths right in a row at that point in time. So I turned on the Ghost Adventure. No, I take that back. I turned on Ghost Lab first. You guys ever watch Ghost Lab?
Yes, I've seen them all.
Same.
Did my research on them too. So
that was the beginning to my research. And I'm like, oh, if these guys get scared, they just scream at the ghosts. They're not getting hurt. They're not getting maimed. The ghosts aren't actually killing them. The worst thing that happens is the light goes off on some piece of equipment I don't understand yet. I'm like, this isn't so bad. So I watched everything I could get my hands on. I still to this day am a Ghost Adventures fangirl. I won't lie. Those guys are entertaining as hell.
Oh, me too. Me too.
And Aaron is so cute.
I love Aaron. I swear he's my favorite.
Yes. And then I started doing a little bit of research online, and I met some people that actually had a paranormal group. And well, actually, we were helping a friend film a commercial for his book at this haunted theater. And we stayed a little later because they were having like a little paracon there. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll check this out. And we walked around with, I think it was the Booth brothers who were like the headliners there. Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? This isn't so bad. So that's where we met this couple that was on a paranormal team, and they invited us along to Black Moon Manor, which no longer exists. But I was excited because it was on the Ghost Adventures, and I wanted to go there. And I walked into the place with these crazy stories, and I felt at home the moment I walked in. I wasn't scared. I felt this sense of peace when I walked in. And the evidence we got was crazy. I also realized that night that I wasn't going to investigate much longer with those people when one of I'll call them the boys in the group, yelled up the stairs, arms wide open, goes, "Come at me, bro." And I'm like, really? Is that what we're doing? And somebody allegedly got scratched. And I'm like, nobody was around you when you got scratched. I'm not really sure that even happened the way you said it did. So I decided, well, before we got that, I had gotten my first camera that can film in the dark. And my husband and I had some video editing skills. So I was going to throw it up on YouTube. Yeah. And we went back to do my, grand Zach Baggins style opener talking about the location. And as we were filming that, and it was just a mic on the camera, I didn't have a lapel mic or anything. There was music playing the whole time I was recording outside of the house, where neither one of us had heard the music the entire time. And I'm like, yeah.
So you did get an EVP, right?
Yeah. I've gotten like 5 in 12 years. Yeah. So it's usually never on a recorder. It's always on a camera.
That's interesting.
Really weird. You get the in the recorder, but I'm like, that's not anything to me. I'm a little judgmental of myself. Yeah. So and then I decided after the whole "come at me, bro" experience, I'm like, I'm going to do this on I have watched enough TV shows and looked at enough Facebook page and, all the quote
Mhm.
unquote research that I thought I was doing.
Yeah.
And I had my husband and I have a photo op company where we do photos with celebrities and their fans at horror conventions and Comic Cons. And we were traveling out
Oh,
to
that sounds
Virginia
fun.
Beach. It's a lot of work. I haven't
Yeah.
worked in a year, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
How I was able to write a
Yeah.
book.
Yes.
And we went out there, and a friend wanted to go ghost hunting because I had been talking about it a lot. And she's like, I know of a place out there. So I hooked it, I set it all up. We went out there, and I kid you not, I saw my first apparition, head to toe,
Oh,
little girl,
really?
sweetest little thing. And I wasn't scared. I chased after her. I was like, where you going? Come back here.
Yeah.
Did I get it on camera? No, of course
Yeah.
not. But yeah, and after that, I was like, oh, I cannot get enough of this.
So did you find out who that little girl was?
Yes. So
Yeah.
it's the Fairy Plantation
Okay.
in Virginia Beach, Virginia. It's actually known for a very famous witch was they tried to put a witch to death there. They called it a ducking. So it wasn't a hanging or a fire
Yes.
situation. It was a ducking. So if they threw you in and you sunk, you were not a witch. But if they threw you in and you floated, you were a witch. Well, I think she floated. They pulled her out. It was this whole big thing. She's very famous there. And I am Alzheimer's years old and I'm forgetting her name right now. Beautiful, beautiful woman. So it was the three of us. It was my husband, my friend, and myself doing the investigating. And it's a museum now. And the ladies who run the museum kind of hang out in the little office area while you do your investigation.
Mhm.
And I told them what I had just seen. And they're like, well, tell me what. I give them the long, flowing, curly hair, the pinafore, all the way down to the feet, dark hair. She was kind of see-through-ish, grayish. And they're like, oh, yeah? And I'm like, yeah. And they pull out this album of drawings of every of the little girl that everybody sees there. And it was my little girl. She was at that time known as the Fairy Plantation girl. I went back last year, right before the pandemic hit, and she has a name, and her name is Rachel.
So what's the story behind her?
I don't know if they know the whole story. I believe she lived there at the plantation. They didn't tell me how she died there. I think they just recently found out who she actually was when I was there last time. I'll have to reach out to Cody and see if they know any more.
Yeah, that would be.
Did I see her the second time? Of course not. But it was a crazy night regardless. I highly recommend the place.
It's a great experience. Have you experienced any other apparitions or?
I have.
Okay.
I see a lot of stuff that not everybody sees. That's why I think I'm an empath or sensitive, if you will. I hear a lot of things other people don't. I, for the longest time, called it my crazy. I've just recently started getting in touch with my intuitive side and actually call it, I'm not a medium, but I see some stuff and I hear some stuff. Anywho, the most recent, however, was season 3, episode 3 of Oddity Files on Amazon Prime. And we were at Bobby Mackey's on the very top floor. If you're familiar with Bobby Mackey's, you know Carl's apartment.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And we were standing there having a great spirit box session. And the name Abby comes over. And we're like, okay. And then you know how you're just kind of constantly scanning the room? I saw in the doorway, the only doorway to come up and go in there, this glowing ball of light about the size of a head. Again, peek around the corner of the door and then go back in. And we got it on film this time.
Ooh, that's good.
And what you actually see is a smaller ball of glowing light, which would be a hand reaching around the door, then the head peeking around, and then it just backs away. Oh, I get goosebumps just thinking about it.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So her name was Abby, like I said, and I realized she followed me home after I was at Fairy Plantation that last time, and the ghost
Mhm.
there did not like her. So
Huh.
yeah. Have you
Did-
ever had anything follow you home?
Well, see, with me, I try not to interact with it.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes I have, but it's just, yeah, I'm kind of like you, a little sensitive to something. So I find out that when I open myself up, it goes haywire and I can't control it. So I've learned to just kind of, keep it away.
No, I feel that. I feel that
Mhm.
totally.
I'd like to learn how to control it, but I would have to learn how to control it before I would just gotta, just
I think that's when
let
my
myself go.
ADHD comes in handy.
Yeah. So when you were younger, did you have any other experiences besides, I mean, like the haunting? You had all these feelings, and you had an active imagination. Did you experience any lights, orbs, sleep paralysis, any lucid dreaming, any crazy stuff like that?
I had my first bout with sleep paralysis, late teens. I
Yeah.
got married when I was 17. Huh, that was a
Ooh.
huge mistake. And he was in the military, so we headed over to Germany. And I'll never forget it, first bout of sleep paralysis there. But
Mm.
I knew nothing paranormal happened. I didn't have the shadow figure over me. I knew
Okay.
something was wrong with my brain. I knew I
Huh.
was awake but couldn't move, but I'd never heard of sleep paralysis before that, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense. And then I had it happen again, probably within the last 15 years. And it's just terrifying. I feel like I can
Mm.
see everything, but and the whole time I'm just screaming for somebody to wake me up, but you
Mhm.
can't really scream. And it feels like hours and hours. And I'm sure
Yes.
it's just a few minutes at
Yes.
tops.
Yeah.
Have you
Yeah.
had an
But
out
no
of
shadow
body
figures.
experience?
Oh.
Have you ever had an out of
Uh-uh.
body experience, Kitsie?
I have
Oh.
not. I have not. The whole time that happened, I was still in wherever I'd fallen asleep. But yeah, and I don't remember my dreams. Usually my dreams stress me out, so I think I block those out as well. Usually it's a task I need to get done and I can never get it done right.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
There's a,
Oh, go ahead.
now, there's a popular
I don't
theory
want
that
to.
the dead sometimes visit us in our dreams. I know you've had
Yes, that's
experiences
true.
like that, Jen, where you've thought
Mhm.
the dead have spoken to you while you've been
Oh, for
asleep.
sure.
Yes, I've had my dad visit me in dreams, and
Yes.
when it's really them because you feel it, you smell it, you wake up bawling. Well, at least I
Yes.
did.
Yeah.
And it's in the hug. I mean, it's like you can still feel the hug when you wake up,
Mhm.
if that makes any sense. So I feel those are visitations. I really do. I'm a firm believer in that. But they just don't happen often enough.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So I don't really want to bring it up. So after he had passed away, how often did you get those dreams? I mean, was it like the first couple of years where he would visit and try to, help you through it and then kind of
No, it's
tapered
been like
off or
2 times over the
oh
years.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I have since spoken to a medium because, it's not like I'm gonna go out going, "Hey, dad, I'm doing this paranormal thing. Come
Right.
talk to me." Um, but,
Mm.
spirit medium Tiffany Rice, she's part of Paranormal Crossroad with us.
Okay.
She was my very first spirit medium reading, and first thing off the bat, dad came over. I'm bawling the entire time. And I hadn't reached out to him until recently. I wasn't even reaching out to him. So I decided, I'm on the TikToks, and I decided I was going to do a dowsing rod session with my
Ooh.
resident spirits because I have 2 that
Ah.
followed me home. I've got a couple allegedly haunted dolls behind me. Um,
Oh.
And I was just going to see who came over, because sometimes it's just my spirit guides,
Yeah.
And I'm like, Anna, is that you? No. Abby, is that you? No. I'm like, we've got Annette and Claudette back there. And I'm like, is it a male? And it crossed. And I'm like, oh, because I had recently done a spirit box session here as well for Patreon fodder. And some guy named Howard came over. Still don't know who Howard is. I'm like, is it Howard? And it didn't do anything. And I've started crying. I'm like, I'm gonna cry. I'm like, Dad, is that you? And they just go, and I was live on TikTok, bawling. I'm like complete silence for a good minute and a half, and I'm just like, I love you.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't even know what to ask him. I said, and I'm like,
oh yeah,
Dad, I do this because of you, right? Shoo. I go, Dad, I wrote a book. And he goes, shoo. So I was floored. But it's funny because my Paranormal Crossroad co-hosts and I were talking. We were doing a show very similar to this. And I had brought up that I'd never actively sought out to speak to my dad. And they're like, are you kidding? We have to do a Paranormal Crossroad around your dad and blah, 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 blah. Because KJ, my co-host, her dad came through unexpectedly when I was investigating her house. 2 days later, I did that TikTok thing, and there's Dad. So maybe he had been wanting me to do that. Have I done it since? No, I don't want to bother him,
Yeah. And then you have to deal with all those feelings too that rush up as soon as you make contact. That's pretty rough too.
But it might be healing. It might be some shadow work I need to do.
That's
Who
true.
knows?
Yes. Yep. So in the dreams, was there any type of I don't know, was he trying to tell you anything or just kind of hanging out with you?
Just that he loved me and that he was proud of me, which is honestly all I need to hear. Yeah. So
What made you
he was
start
actually oh, go ahead.
No, sorry, you go, Kitsie. No, you go.
He was actually my stepfather who raised me since I was 10 years old. I call the man who was part of my creation, my sperm donor. Yeah, he was my daddy. 1,000,000%. Yeah.
No, I'm very close to my stepfather as well. He's very much like a father to me. He's probably listening or watching. Hi, Alan, if you are.
Hi, Alan.
They're very supportive, my parents.
Yes, they are.
So happy Mother's Day to my mother as well. She's probably now we're going like just yelling people's names and saying hello. I never wanted it to be that kind of show. But I was
like
going
a spirit
to ask
box session.
Hey,
I was going to ask you, Kitsie. I found it interesting because, like I said before the show started, Jen's far more into paranormal investigation than I am. So I'm not as aware probably of a lot of the techniques that are used today. But I know when I was younger, I was interested in dowsing rods for a number of reasons. It was quite popular back in the 70s, and you'd get a book and it would tell you how to make them. But I don't know if I've ever seen on television, and I haven't watched as many paranormal shows as I'm sure you guys have consumed, but I'm not sure if I've ever seen anybody else use dowsing rods. Is that something fairly unique to what you do, or are there other investigators out there using them as well?
That's an excellent question. I don't think I've really seen them use them. I like the whole witchy vibe they have, that, and especially if you're in a location from like the 1700s or whatever.
Oh yeah.
This might be more familiar to them, is the way I view it. I mean, I could be just making it up, but and it just seems really easy to explain. I'm really adamant about explaining all of the equipment I use to the spirits, especially now that we're helping people in their homes, and I'm not in these notoriously haunted locations where every weekend they're booked up, and they've got investigators in there every other day. I feel like, especially with these spirits who are sometimes family members, who are sometimes maybe attached to the land, 9 times out of 10, they are family members. I feel like it's an easy in because we're just like, just tap it, just use your energy to give it a tap. And the flashlight sessions have been really great as well. You don't see those used that much anymore. Those are like our gateway drugs when we start an
Yes.
investigation, though.
I love the flashlights too. Those are
Oh,
good.
they're so
Have you ever
magical when
tried
they're.
pendulums? Yes, that is.
See, that's something I'm getting into now
I
is
love.
pendulums.
Yes, I've started using them and I love them. It's so fascinating when you're like, tell me which way is yes or no, and then it starts moving on. It's fascinating. I had no idea. I prefer the dowsing rods and the pendulums, the old school, over the
Yes.
electronics.
Absolutely. Well, when you've got a walkie-talkie that will set off a REM pod in a heartbeat, it's
a
like,
lot of
come
false
on.
positives.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. But yeah, my co-star KJ, she's very big into Reiki, and her thing has been pendulums for a long time. And since I've been talking to her, like the pendulum actually works for me all of a sudden. Maybe it's because I learned how to use it, but
Yeah.
I meditate a lot. Spirit guides are
Mhm.
my new thing. I'm trying to get in touch with my spirit guides and find out about past lives, all that stuff.
Oh,
It's a complete obsession for me right now. So I've started doing a pendulum session after I do that to ask them questions about things I've seen in meditation, or, tell me my future, pretty much, or most of the questions, to be perfectly honest.
Mhm.
But I'll just be holding that, and it'll start off, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden it is just going banana. I'm like, I'm looking at my hand. I'm like, is that me? I blows my mind.
Yes. It's so crazy.
Yes, but I love that old school stuff. I really tarot cards. I'm trying to bring oracle cards are my jam. There's way too much to memorize in a tarot card deck. But I'm trying to bring those into investigations a little more, just kind of grassroots,
Yeah. Has it worked any though? Because I've just started picking up. I have Oracle and Tarot, and I still haven't learned it though, but I've wanted to. So has that worked with you in investigation?
Yes,
Really?
I've done it, on camera once on an investigation, and I did the reading, and the spirit that came through said the exact same thing that my reading had said about this person who was dealing with the haunting. And then spirit medium Tiffany came in and said the exact same thing again. So the cards were dead on.
That's
Absolutely dead on. I highly recommend the Moonology Oracle deck because when you draw a card, it says exactly what the card means on the card, which is helpful.
That helps.
You don't have to whip out the book and go, okay.
Yeah. Actually, Dee knows a little bit about it. I was quite surprised because I showed him my deck and he's like, oh, well, that's that. And that's that. And I'm like, well, how do you know about tarot? But he does know about tarot, which is quite interesting.
Oh, nice.
Before I became perhaps more, I don't know, a little less reluctant to fiddle around with the occult. When I was younger, I used to read tarot. I don't mess around. I mean, I'm still interested theoretically with all these things, but I don't try to open any doorways or fiddle around with anything anymore. But yeah, tarot's fascinating because there's something very archetypal about the tarot deck. I think there's a real potency, whether you believe in the supernatural or whether you believe in fortune telling or whatever. There's a real potency to some of those tarot decks as far as the imagery and the evocative nature of the artwork on I think I used to use what's it called? Is it the Waite Rider deck was my favorite deck, I think.
Oh yeah, that's like the most common one, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it is, and it's just I think for whatever reason the imagery in that, as I said, really captures some very deep archetypal feel. So yeah, it's fascinating. I often wonder if somehow any kind of psychic or supernatural ability of the deck aside, if somehow it isn't a way that we access our subconscious because of the power of the imagery and those things. So yeah, I think something happens there.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't view them as a cult, but I love a good Ouija board. So I just use it. I consider it all, paranormal investigative tools.
But I think in your book I read when you were a teenager, you did a Ouija board and you were kind of, you will tell us a little bit about the story. I don't need to tell it. It's more interesting coming from you.
Yeah. So, as all teenage girls do at sleepovers, I decided a Ouija board needed to be purchased from the local Toys R Us. And my friend and I had done a session in broad daylight on my back patio. Mom and Dad took little sister off to a softball game. And we decided we were going to figure out our future. You know, that's what it's all about. The cards, the board, whatever. And things came through and it was awesome. Nothing terrifying, nothing, everything seemed to be good news for both of us. And that was it. Mom and Dad were on the way back, put the board away, threw it in my bedroom, and we did our teenage stuff. And then we went to sleep. And I woke up the next morning in the house that you were asking about, where I said, you know, nothing really happened. I lied because wait. I woke up to a very loud, gruff voice saying, "Get out." And I woke up my friend. I said, before my mom and dad get up, we got to get this thing the fuck out of here.
Oh, yeah.
We got to burn this. If mom finds out, she's going to be pissed. So, and I don't know if it was true or not, but in the 80s anyway, everybody says you can't actually burn a board because it's got some kind of fire retardant thing on it. So I broke it over my knee a couple times, and we took, so she had this little hatchback. It was a Plymouth Horizon, dating myself so badly. And we decided that we were going to take the planchette and we were going to run it over with our car. So it would smash into a million little plastic pieces. It didn't work. We rolled over it. I'm like, God, what are we going to do now? So mom and dad are going to be up soon. So we headed back to my house, threw everything in the garbage can in the alley, and went to sleep. And it was done. Or so I thought.
So you thought, yeah.
Yeah. So I ended up purchasing that house from my mother with the guy I married way too young, not my current husband, who's magical and wonderful, and I love him so very much. But we had purchased the house from my mom, and we had a couple kids. One was a newborn, had the old school monitors. Remember when they didn't have TV screens? They were just the sound. Yeah, that's what I had. 1993 or 2, something like that. And my son was a crier. He had colic. I mean, he would projectile vomit across the room. Kid was had a tough time when he was a little guy. And so I'm decided, okay, I'm going to let him cry himself to sleep tonight. I'm not going to coddle him like mom says I shouldn't. And so I'm sitting there just listening to him on the monitor, just screaming and screaming. I'm like, I got to get up and go to work in the morning. And then I hear that same voice I heard just a few years earlier. The master bedroom had become my old bedroom, so it's in the same bedroom. Say, "Shut up." So needless to say, I jumped out of bed, ran, grabbed my son, and coddled him the rest of the evening.
Goodness.
So yes, those are the two things that actually stand out, and I can't explain them. The baby monitor you can almost explain away because cordless phones were so bad back then.
Radios,
but it was the same voice I heard with my ears. So yes, that was terrifying. That marriage ended not long after that. I don't know if I kind of wonder, looking back, if the spirit of the house, which is the house I grew up in, knew that this guy was bad for me. So he ended it. I'd still love to go back and investigate that house. I tell you what, but maybe someday.
So were you dating the guy when you were 15, when you first interacted with that spirit?
Yes, he was actually already in Germany. So yeah.
Could be.
Maybe it was just, ancestor, spirit guide, whatever, just saying, no, this is not, he needs to get out, is what they were saying.
Yes.
Because they were right. But yeah, so crazy things.
You're often, I found interesting in your book as well. You're often very, I don't mean this in the wrong way, but you're sometimes flirty with the male ghosts. Like there's a kiss story when you were in the jailhouse. What was the name of the jailhouse? Tell us that story anyway. That was one of the most fascinating ones in the book.
So yes, it's the Old Lake County Jail and Sheriff's Office, which is the county I grew up in. So I went back home to investigate this place. amazing place. This is actually the location that John Dillinger broke out of back in the day. From like Public Enemies, the movie.
Mhm.
I mean, it wasn't Johnny Depp. I wish it was, but
Yeah.
so this is the only location I've been back to on several locations. I think it's because the adrenaline rush you get in these jails, just because all the spirits are so that are there. It's so amazing. But the first time I was there, I met the spirit named Fur, and he was actually Al Capone's hitman back in the day. So, I mean, he's a pretty terrible, terrible man. Don't get me wrong. Terrible man. Some reason he liked me. First time I was there, after a long, drawn out, oh my God, I'm so terrified. This is like the last time I was truly terrified to the core doing this, because I felt like he was trying to separate me from the group through like a K2 session, the way he was answering the questions.
Yeah.
But come to find out, apparently I reminded him of somebody he cared about when he was alive, named Harriet. So I went back and I went in. I'm just like, Fur, you here? I'm back. Let's do this. So, and in that first session, I let him, because it was a jail. I'm like, I wore my booty jeans for all you inmates. Just, maybe we can get you to interact. I wish my booty still looked like that. But I went back and I'm like, Fur, I'm back. I'm ready to talk, blah, 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 blah. And we got a little bit of activity going on. I was trying to introduce Clayton, who's part of the Oddity Files TV show, to Fur as well. And I had asked Fur, we were leaving. That's what it was. And I brought a cigarette in, because I mean, that's cash in a jail, right?
Sure.
And I'm like, I'll leave you this cigarette if you give me a kiss. And he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. And then I said, well, I'm getting ready to leave, man. Either I leave this cigarette and you give me a kiss, or, until next time. I literally felt what I can only describe as butterfly wings on my lip. Not like a buzzing, but like actual air movement. It was the craziest thing I had ever, even to this day, had ever felt or witnessed, if you will. It was just absolutely nuts. And then I went back another time and he wouldn't talk to me. So I don't know. Ghosts.
That's pretty cool.
It was really cool. It was really cool. So, I made out with Al Capone's hitman, just in case you're wondering.
Yeah. Who else can say they've done that? That's awesome.
I know. Right? I mean, again, he was a terrible, terrible murderer, but
yeah,
he was always nice to me.
Have you had other physical sensations or physical touching or anything from ghosts? Or in fact, you do. There's another flirty one, which is kind of a physical. Was that Fur as well? I'm trying to remember.
Oh, where I felt him grab my ass?
Yeah.
That was Fur. That was the first time I met Fur. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I was asking for it. I literally was. I was like, "Ooh, I wore my booty pants." Yeah. So, I mean, what are they not gonna? They're not gonna grab my ass.
But never anything violent or painful. I know you joked about somebody pretending they were scratched before and they hadn't really been, but.
No, I haven't. I mean, I've bumped into some shit in the dark. I'm not gonna lie, that will leave a mark, but it's not been anything paranormal. There was one spirit. I don't even think I went into this in the book, but there's this place called Revenant Acres. It's here in Indiana. Just an itty bitty little farmhouse. The ghost I couldn't get to turn, who came off as malevolent or evil, not a demon, and I couldn't get to turn toward my side, because I try. I used to be a people pleaser, and then I found out people are generally disappointing. So now I'm a ghost pleaser. And I tried so hard. This guy, he told me to fuck off on the spirit box. But there were two spirits there, and we did have a medium. It wasn't Tiffany, who said that he was holding a spirit there. I don't know how that works. That seems like I don't know. Is that a thing? Do we know?
I hear it a lot, but I don't know how it
I
works.
know. But I feel like there should be free will. Anyway, don't get me started on ghosts and
Yeah.
free will. Um,
Yeah.
but I tried to get her to cross over. Now, have I done it since? Maybe once, but I'm so worried that if I try to get a spirit to cross over, it's going to be some lady from a brothel ends up in a kindergarten room in Oklahoma.
Oh no.
That would not go over very well.
Oh my goodness.
But it did feel lighter. I told her to look for the light, go into the light, and it felt lighter. Did I do anything? I don't know. There's no proof, but it pissed this ghost off. It really did.
Oh.
And he pretty much swore at me the entire night. And it was an uneasy feeling. That was probably the last time I was just like, I don't want to be here anymore. It's time to go. Because I just felt, I mean, yeah, we had the medium telling me what she thought was going on, which really made it worse. Really, I'm like, oh my God, he wants to hurt me.
Yeah.
But I figured if any time I was going to get scratched or pushed, it was going to be that location, but it wasn't. I get lightheaded sometimes, but that's about it.
So have you ever had like an experience where it was not really, kind of evil? Like you could feel the presence, like it was.
Oh, yeah. That was the last time.
That was okay.
Yeah. I mean, any jail you go into, you feel that. It's like, somebody was an asshole in life and is continuing to be an asshole in death. And that's kind of where I came up with that saying, was that Revenant Acres. I'm like, this guy's just a dick. And you enjoy your shitty little afterlife.
Have you come up with any theories about the afterlife? Well, I mean, there's
tough.
Yeah.
I know that there's only so much energy on this earth, and it's not going to change no matter what. So is reincarnation a thing? Does any energy that leaves, new energy comes in? I don't know. I feel like most spirits that are here choose to be here. I don't bring religion into this at all because, one, you don't know what religion the spirit is. You're talking about Jesus Christ to a poor little old Jewish lady. She's gonna get pissed. So I just try to, like I said in the beginning, I just try to treat them all with the respect I would if I were to meet them in person. And it's been super beneficial. Have I had my scary moments? Yeah, I pretty much told you guys all of them, but I've had some really, really beautiful moments, like the new Paranormal X Road, if you will. One of the first investigations I did was a woman who had lost her son. And at 3 months old, he had died and was paralyzed his entire life. He could never really speak out loud the entire time.
It's so sad.
Yeah, I met them through the convention world, through my day job. And what a light this young man was. He came into a room and I was just like, oh, I just smiled. His name was Justin. And when he passed, his mom had thought she had seen some signs from him at the cemetery. And my big thing is I don't investigate outside because I don't trust people. I need to be inside a building to do my investigation. I said, can I do it at your house? She's like, I don't know. He's never shown me a sign here. I'm like, you know what? If he's ready to talk, if he's ready to let you know, he's with you, So I did the dowsing rods first, and this kid watched all the ghost shows just like us. Dowsing rods going back and forth, flashlight popped on.
Wow.
And then we brought up the spirit box. And when he said hello, there was not a dry eye in the room. And especially when he said, I love you, Mom, it was just so freaking beautiful. Just amazing. So this is my jam now. I want to help people. And if I can help people get over the grief that I dealt with for so many years before I got into this, I want to. So that's my paranormal investigative career in a nutshell, if you will.
Yeah. I know for me, because I've started the investigating as well, what kind of advice would you give for any type of family member that might have an issue with that? Because I guess religion comes to play in that one. They don't want to believe that their loved
Right.
ones are here. They're supposed to be in heaven. you know?
Right.
So
And
I have to deal with that a lot, and I try to explain, and it's just doesn't work.
yes, specifically for this, Tammy was her name, Justin's
Mhm.
mother. Her mom had a hard time with it. She's like, Justin
Mhm.
should be in heaven. And she's like, no, mom, he's an angel now. He's come down to visit. So
Yeah.
I mean, do we have a rule book on heaven? Can you not come down? We don't know. We
Yeah.
don't know. I mean,
Mm-mm.
there's the Bible, but again, don't get me started on religion.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
gonna leave it there.
I know. My Sunday school teacher did not like me when I was 8 because I questioned everything.
Oh,
Everything.
yeah.
I'm like, how do you know that? Prove that. So,
Says
I
who?
was not liked. Yeah, I know.
Exactly. Yeah, but you know what? Just I tell people like that, just have an open mind. Look at the evidence. That's what I specifically say. I'm like, look at this evidence I got. I seriously feel that's why every ghost was a demon for Ed and Lorraine Warren, because they were so religious. And if you're not an angel in heaven, you would be a demon. And I don't hold that against them. They're the only ones I don't hold the demon card against, just because I love them so much and they were so amazing.
Yeah.
But if you think about it that way, it makes sense, because so many people that are so, especially devout Catholics,
Mhm.
when you die, you go to heaven and that's it. And that's your
Yeah.
pearly gates. I've had spirits tell me what heaven is like, and then they've chose to stay down here.
Huh. Well, what they say? What'd you get out of them?
It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the spirit box literally said, it's what I just was editing that episode.
Mhm.
So,
Oh, really?
and I asked, she was actually murdered. The
Oh,
spirit
no.
I was talking, yeah,
Oh, my
crazy
goodness.
story. Can't wait for you guys to see this episode.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, she knows she's dead, because that's something I worry about too with spirits.
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
God, do they know they're dead? Am I, ruining their entire day when I go, when you died?
Right.
But I'm like, okay, she knows she was murdered. She knows. I'm like, is there a heaven?
Mhm.
And again, I don't do religious, so I was expecting it to not do anything, and they crossed. So there is a heaven,
Wow.
but they have free will, and they can come back down.
So what about, I've always wondered myself in investigating, like, what if, like it's purgatory? That's what I've always wondered. If it's
Yeah.
just where they just don't know how to get there. And I know that's part of investigating, and people that are sensitive can move them on. So if you've done that before, how did you learn how to connect that way to get them to move on?
Like I said, I'm not sure it worked when I did it.
Well, I'm sure
don't
you've consulted somebody, right? Like they've kind of given you pointers. So this is what you probably should do. And
I you know what? I just did what I'd seen in every movie, every supernatural episode. I'm like, look for the light.
Oh, yes. Carol Ann. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, literally. I embraced my inner Tanchina.
Yes. Mhm.
I remember about going to the light. I remember something which always disturbed me. I heard on an old Art Bell episode, maybe a couple of Art Bell episodes. I think maybe it was somebody you wouldn't even think of as attached to the ghostly world, like John Lear, who was a UFO personality. It was somebody told Art Bell that he'd heard, when you die, don't go to the light because it's a trick. That's pretty terrifying, because you would go to the light, but it's always something which Bell said which really disturbed me, and I thought, my goodness.
Oh, great! Now I'm gonna have nightmares. Thanks.
Now I'm not. Yeah. Anyway, you were a wonderful guest, Kitsie. But could you tell us how anybody who wants to get your book, watch any of your shows, listen to your podcast, any of those things, how they get a hold of any of your materials?
Yeah, just head to flow.page/Kitsie Duncan. It's all there.
Oh, that's easy. Right. Fantastic.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. I just discovered this thing. I'm like, yeah, exactly. And I'm terrible at keeping up on websites. So I'm like, oh, this is just a page of all my links. Score.
I need to get me one of those.
Hey.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, not LinkedIn. Linktree costs at this point. Flow.page is free.
Ah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, you were a wonderful guest. Thank you so much for coming on,
Oh,
Kitsie.
thanks.
Yes, definitely.
So much fun. You guys are amazing.
Oh, you're wonderful too. And please,
very
whatever
much.
you do, keep it weird.
Yeah.
Oh, weird is the new cool.
Yeah.
That's my time.
Thank you for joining us tonight. If you're interested in checking out more episodes, you can find us at talkingweird.com. If you haven't already, please like the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Talking Weird Podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to Talking Weird. We're available on most podcast platforms and YouTube. And if you do enjoy the show, please leave us a review. Dean and I would really appreciate it. Until then, stay safe and keep it weird.